Stop fighting battles that were never meant to be yours, because every time you try to control everything, you drain the energy that's meant to elevate you. Life is not about proving your strength in every situation. It's about knowing which fights are assignments and which are distractions. The truth is, not every challenge that shows up deserves your attention. Some situations exist only to pull you off course, to make you forget the bigger picture, to make you waste your emotional energy on something that won't even matter in a week. Most people lose momentum not because they lack power, but because they fight in the wrong direction. They argue when they should be silent, chase when they should be still, and push when they should let peace handle it. There's a quiet confidence that comes when you realize you don't need to fight everything to prove your worth. You already carry strength that doesn't need validation through conflict. When you choose to step back instead of step in, that's not weakness, that's wisdom in motion. You've got to understand that the real battles are internal, not external. The real war is not what's happening around you, but what's happening inside you. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you win. Every time you choose focus over frustration, you grow. The world trains you to respond instantly, to defend yourself, to fight back at every challenge. But the spirit that elevates you operates differently. It teaches patience when you want to rush, peace when you want to panic, and purpose when you want to prove a point. Most of the things that try to knock you off balance are only testing how much you've grown. If you can stand still when everything around you tries to provoke you, that's real power. The moment you realize that silence can be strategy, you stop losing to noise. You start seeing that you don't have to show up to every argument you're invited to. You have to know the difference between a battle that grows you and a battle that drains you. Some fights strengthen your character, but others simply distract your destiny. That's why discernment is power. You've got to pause and ask yourself, is this worth my energy, my time, my peace? Because if it costs your peace, it's probably not your purpose. Sometimes the best way to win is to let go. When you release control, when you stop chasing validation, that's when alignment begins. You start attracting opportunities that fit your calling instead of forcing situations that break your flow. Every time you choose alignment over argument, you rise a little higher. You might not see results instantly, but the peace you feel is proof that you're on the right path. You don't need to fight every critic, every opinion, every misunderstanding. When you truly know who you are, you stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Your purpose doesn't need to shout to be real. It speaks through consistency, through resilience, through how you handle adversity. When you let something greater handle the battles, you stop wasting your potential trying to fix what time and truth will fix for you. The things you're chasing will come when you stop chasing everything. Power is not in the reaction, it's in the restraint. You don't lose when you let go. You lose when you let things consume you that were never meant for you. Every champion learns that victory isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like walking away with peace instead of walking back into chaos. The same energy you spend trying to fight what's temporary could be invested in building what's eternal. You've got a limited amount of energy each day, and where you put it determines your future. So if you pour it into fear, worry, and frustration, that's the harvest you'll get. But if you pour it into growth, gratitude, and grace, that's when the real transformation starts. You can't keep giving power to every negative word or situation that crosses your path. Some things aren't worth the battle because they don't align with your assignment. You have to protect your focus like it's your most valuable currency, because it's letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about your peace to not let chaos live rent-free in your mind. The people who understand their purpose know when to step back and when to step forward. Every step back is not a retreat. Sometimes it's a reset. Every pause isn't procrastination. Sometimes it's preparation. The best fighters know when not to swing. You can't build a legendary life if you're constantly drained by temporary fights. The greatest power move is surrender. Not surrender to weakness, but surrender to wisdom. The moment you stop fighting everything and start trusting your alignment, your entire energy shifts. Doors open easier, opportunities flow smoother, and what used to feel heavy starts feeling light. That's when you realize peace is not something you chase, it's something you choose. And the moment you choose it, battles begin to resolve themselves in ways you could never engineer. The energy that was once spent defending yourself can now be spent developing yourself. You begin to see that the world doesn't respond to your struggle, it responds to your stability. When you stay grounded, when you stay calm, when you stay centered, that's when the real miracles start to unfold. You're not meant to fight every storm, you're meant to rise above it. The moment you let go of the need to win every argument, life starts to win for you. The spirit that guides purpose is always fighting on your behalf, not by force, but through flow, not through struggle, but through strategy. Alignment creates victories that effort alone can't achieve because alignment isn't about dots. How hard you push, it's about how right your direction is. You can grind all day, hustle all night, and still stay stuck if your energy is scattered in the wrong direction. There's a big difference between movement and progress. You can move constantly and still not advance. You can be busy and still be broke, active and still unproductive. Alignment is when your intention, your actions, and your purpose flow in the same direction. That's when doors open that no amount of pushing could ever open. You start realizing that effort is powerful, but effort without clarity is exhaustion. The people who win big aren't always the ones who work the night hardest. They're the ones who work from the most aligned place. When your energy is clean, your focus is clear, and your actions are connected to your purpose, success starts chasing you instead of you chasing it. Alignment gives your effort meaning. You stop doing random things hoping they'll work, and you start doing the right things knowing they will work. You stop fighting battles that don't build you. You stop saying yes to everything and start saying yes to the right things. Alignment is not about doing more, it's about doing what matters most. When you align your mind, your words, and your actions, you create momentum that no opposition can stop. The reason so many people burn out is not because they lack strength, but because they're pushing against their own flow. They're trying to build success from force, not flow. Force says, I have to make it happen. Flow says, I'm becoming the person it happens through. When you shift from forcing outcomes to aligning with purpose, life starts to feel lighter. Opportunities that felt impossible start to appear naturally because your energy is on a dot, longer divided between who you are and who you're pretending to be. You can't build your next level with yesterday's mindset. Alignment requires you to grow, to evolve, to let go of the things that no longer serve where you're going. Sometimes you have to release people, habits, and even old versions of yourself to make room for what's coming. That's not loss, that's alignment. It's like tuning an instrument. If one string is off, the whole song sounds wrong. In life, when your thoughts, emotions, and decisions are out of sync, everything feels harder than it should. But when you're tuned correctly, when your actions match your values, when your focus matches your faith, when your effort matches your purpose, everything harmonizes. You start attracting the right people, the right timing, the right ideas. That's not coincidence. That's alignment at work. Effort without alignment feels like running uphill against the wind. You give your all, yet feel drained because what you're building isn't in sync with who you truly are. But when you're aligned, even hard work feels lighter because it's fueled by passion, not pressure. You stop comparing your journey to others because you understand that your path is custom made for your purpose. You start recognizing that success is not about pace, it's about placement. You can't bloom if you're planted in the wrong environment. You can't grow if you're fighting the ground you're rooted in. Alignment helps you recognize where you belong, who you belong with, and what deserves your energy. It makes you strategic about where you invest your time and intentional about what you allow into your spirit. When you're aligned, rejection doesn't break you, it redirects you. Setbacks stop feeling like punishment and start feeling like preparation. Closed doors don't make you bitter. They make you better because you know something bigger is aligning behind the scenes. That's the beauty of alignment. It teaches you to trust timing over tension. You stop rushing results because you know what's meant for. You can't miss you. It might be delayed, but it won't be denied. You start operating from confidence instead of competition because you understand your lane, your pace, your grace. You don't need to push for everything because what's aligned with your destiny will flow to you naturally. Not Naller, that doesn't mean you don't work. It means you work wisely. True alignment brings peace into your grind, right? You no longer chase validation because your purpose itself becomes your reward. You don't need applause when you're aligned because your work speaks for itself. Every action you take feels intentional and every move has meaning. That's when miracles happen in motion, not because you forced them, but because you flowed into them. You see, life becomes effortless, not because the challenges disappear, but because you've positioned yourself to move in harmony with them. It's like surfing. You can't control the waves, but when you align with them, you ride them instead of fighting them. The people who understand alignment are not lucky. They're positioned. They're in tune with the frequency of purpose, and that's why what they touch begins to grow. There's a rhythm to success, and alignment helps you hear it. It allows you to sense when to act, when to wait, when to speak, and when to stay silent. You don't waste time trying to fix what doesn't fit anymore. You don't keep forcing connections that slow you down. You start protecting your peace, your energy, and your focus because you understand that those are sacred resources. Every step you take in alignment compounds into something greater. It's not about giant leaps. It's about consistent, intentional movement in the right direction. Small steps aligned with purpose create massive shifts over time. You don't have to do everything. You just have to do the right things consistently. That's when you realize alignment is the secret behind acceleration. The moment everything inside of you agrees with the direction you're going, momentum builds naturally. The work becomes joyful and success starts to look inevitable. You stop second guessing your worth and start walking in it. The world responds differently to someone who's aligned because their presence carries clarity. You can feel when someone knows where they're going and who they are. That kind of energy doesn't need to shout. It commands attention quietly. Alignment makes your life magnetic. You start attracting what you've been chasing. Everything begins to connect, not because you worked harder, but because you worked in harmony with your higher flow. Flow with purpose. And the unseen power will move when you can't, because when you move with intention instead of impulse, life begins to respond differently. Most people try to push their way through problems, but purpose has a rhythm. And when you catch that rhythm, you stop forcing outcomes that aren't ready. Flow doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the right thing at the right time in the right spirit. It's about being guided instead of being driven. When you flow with purpose, your actions stop coming from fear and start coming from clarity. You begin to see that real strength isn't in control, it's in surrender, not to weakness, but to wisdom. You stop chasing everything and start attracting what's meant for you. The unseen power that governs success moves through alignment, not anxiety. When you stop trying to make life happen and start letting it happen through you, that's when the breakthrough starts to form. Flowing with purpose is about being in sync with your calling, not your comfort. It's easy to grind endlessly, to keep pushing just because that's what everyone else is doing. But flow teaches you something effort never can. It teaches you timing. You can have all the talent, discipline, and drive in the world, but if your timing is off, frustration becomes your companion. Flow is what brings your talent into divine timing. It's what takes preparation and turns it into manifestation. It's that invisible momentum that makes opportunities find you when you least expect it. You don't chase them. You meet them in the rhythm of your purpose. That's why it's so important to stay in tune with yourself. The moment you step out of your flow, you start forcing what's not for you. You start working harder, but feeling less fulfilled. Flow restores the connection between what you do and why you do it. You'll know you're in flow when your effort feels light, but your results feel heavy. You'll know you're in flow when peace becomes your pace. The unseen power begins to clear paths that you didn't even know existed. Doors that were once locked suddenly open, not because you kicked them down, but because your presence carried the right vibration to unlock them. Flowing with purpose doesn't mean you avoid hard work. It means your work is directed by something higher than your own plans. It's not random, it's intentional. Every step is led by conviction, not by confusion. You start making moves that make sense later, but feel right now. That's how the unseen power works. It moves in patterns you can't always predict, but you can always feel. When you're in that state of flow, setbacks stop feeling like failures and start feeling like redirections. You stop forcing closed doors to open because you trust that closed doors protect you as much as open ones promote you. Flow makes you flexible. It allows you to bend without breaking, to adapt without losing your identity. You stop clinging to control and start holding on to conviction. You don't need to know every step because purpose reveals itself as you walk. The unseen power doesn't give you the map, it gives you momentum. It pushes you gently through what once felt impossible. When you operate in that space, you realize that what's for you doesn't require struggle, it requires surrender. Flow with purpose also changes how you see challenges. You stop labeling everything as a problem and start recognizing it as preparation. Every delay, every disappointment, every detour becomes part of your development. That unseen power works in silence, not with noise, not with attention, but with precision. It aligns the right people, places, and moments in ways you couldn't orchestrate, even if you tried. The reason many people never see miracles is because they're too busy forcing what flow would have freely provided. Flow requires trust, patience, and consistency. It's the art of doing what you can and letting go of what you can't. When you learn that balance, you start to experience effortless progress, not because life gets easier, but because you get wiser. When you flow with purpose, you stop living in reaction mode. You stop letting emotions dictate your direction. You start making decisions from a place of peace, not pressure. The unseen power begins to amplify your effort. What used to take years starts happening in months because you're no longer fighting against yourself. Your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions move as one. That's the secret to flow. It unites everything within you. You stop needing motivation to act because alignment itself becomes your fuel. You stop second-guessing your path because peace confirms what purpose already knows. The unseen power works best when you stop resisting it. The more you let go of how you think things should be, the faster you move toward how they're meant to be. Flowing with purpose means trusting the process even when the process doesn't make sense. It means understanding that progress isn't always visible, but it's always happening beneath the surface. The seed doesn't see the sun when it's underground, but it still grows. That's what flow feels like: silent growth, quiet progress, invisible movement. You keep showing up, you keep believing, and before you know it, you're standing in the middle of what you once prayed for. That's not luck, that's flow aligning your faith with your future. There's a rhythm to greatness, and when you learn to move in harmony with it, you stop wasting time fighting resistance. You start dancing with destiny. You recognize that everything that once felt heavy was only teaching you how to move lighter. Flow doesn't mean everything will be easy, but it means you'll handle everything with ease. You'll find power in your patience and clarity in your calm. That's when the unseen power begins to move mountains for you. The things that used to intimidate you will start to inspire you. You'll stop asking, how will this happen? And start saying, watch what happens next. When you're flowing with purpose, you become unstoppable, not because you're forcing your way through life, but because you're finally aligned with the current that was carrying you all along.